You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 242. The big O you don't want. If you're a business owner who wants to improve your time management and elevate your productivity so you can maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you joined me. As adults, can we all agree that there is a big O that we could all use more of? Well, today, while I cannot help you with that, it's not that kind of podcast, I can help you avoid the big O's in business that you most definitely do not want more of. And now, let's get to the straight talk. So what are the big O's in business that you most definitely do not want more of? Being overcommitted, overexerted, and overworked. Why? Because they make you overwhelmed. And that feeling, let's be honest, totally sucks. It robs you of joy in your business and life. Being overwhelmed is often a symptom of overcommitting, overexerting, and overworking yourself. Saying you're overwhelmed is simply generalizing what you're experiencing, making it tough to find the solution. Like going to the doctor and telling them simply, I don't feel good. And without any other details, not feeling well is much like saying, I'm overwhelmed. It's a throwaway statement that does not help you find a solution. And my assumption here is that you want to avoid feeling overwhelmed. And that when you throw out, I'm overwhelmed, and stop there and choose to not dig any deeper to discover the root cause of your overwhelm, really, you're preventing from any kind of solution to be found. Just like if you went to a doctor and you said, I don't feel good. And then the doctor said, well, what doesn't feel good? And you said, I just don't feel good. It does not lead them to any kind of clues to be able to discover what the root cause of not feeling good is so they can solve that. And ultimately, the result is you feel better. And if you find yourself saying, I'm overwhelmed, and you're not digging any deeper to be able to communicate that, describe that, or discover what may be causing the overwhelm, then you truly are doing yourself a disservice and not being able to find a solution. So what does overcommitting, overexerting, and overworking yourself look like so that you can recognize when you're doing it and choose differently? And the reason that I am going over these three, overcommitted, overexerted, and overworking, is that my years of coaching and supporting business owners, I would say that a large percentage come from these three areas. Now, not all overwhelm comes from this by any means, but for today's episode, I thought it would be worth diving deep into these three areas, describing them so that you can determine if that may be the cause of your overwhelm. Now, let's admit here that overcommitted and overexerted and overworked is very subjective, right? Like everyone is different and has a different threshold. You are the only one that knows when enough is enough. Because my version of overcommitted may be vastly different than yours. My version of overworked can look very different than yours. And there is no right or wrong. But what I love about this is that it's giving us some areas in which to look at and to question and ask ourselves, do I feel that being overcommitted is causing me stress and overwhelm? Do I believe that I'm overexerted? Do I believe that I am overworked? And this is not to anyone else's standards, but an honest conversation with yourself. I'm going to give you a very personal, specific example here. I have my calendar that syncs to my phone. And if my husband, when he sees my calendar, he's looking over my shoulder, or he asks me if I'm available for something and I say, let me look at my calendar, he is literally like, how do you function? Like, how is it possible that you have that much on your calendar? And I'm thinking, that much? Like, I'm just accounting for where all my time is at and documenting it and creating the life that I choose. And I happen to be documented on a calendar. But for him, he's like, oh my gosh, like that would immediately lead him to perhaps overwhelm. So that is a real life example that there is absolutely no judgment. It is very subjective. And the only opinion that matters is your own opinion of yourself. So what is overcommitted? Overcommitted would be taking on too much, saying yes to too many things or all the things, that your calendar is so full that you do not have time for flexibility or when the unexpected happens, or quite frankly, to fill it in with things that bring you joy. There's no white space, no time for family, friends, passions, hobby, travel. That could be a sign that you are overcommitted. Overexerted. This may look like excessive physical or mental effort. Little sleep. That you try to focus, but you can't do it for long. That you have decision fatigue. That you are unable to combat distractions, internal or external. Or perhaps interruptions. Being overexerted may stifle your creativity. It may stifle your ideas. Being overexerted may feel like consistent, constant exhaustion. Overworked. Overworked may look like you have no boundaries to your workday. You're working nights, you're working mornings, you're working all day, you're working weekends, you squeeze out breaks, you tell yourself there's not enough time, that you are so overworked that you may believe there is no other option for anything in your life and thus squeezing it out. Another way of describing really all three of these things and checking with yourself, since this is very subjective, is, do you feel out of a balance? Do you feel like the life that you desire and the way in which you want to experience being a business owner feels completely out of balance? Is your business taking so much of you because you believe or are choosing to overcommit yourself, overexert yourself, and overwork yourself? These are really important questions to ask yourself, or to work with a coach who will ask you those questions and hold space for you to discover what is true for you. I'm going to give you a few examples, and this is just a few examples of each of these areas of overcommitted, overexerted, and overworked, and ways to not do that. So let's dive into how to not overcommit yourself. So actually, let me back up. Let's determine or decide that it's overcommitted that is your challenge, or it's overexerted or overworked, whatever those areas are, or maybe it's a combination of all three. I want to dive deeper into those and give you actionable examples of things that you can do to limit that. How to not overcommit yourself. Say no to new things that do not align with your goals or vision of success. Now, what would be true here is that you have to be really clear with what your goals are and what your vision of success is, both personally and professionally. Stop doing things that no longer serve you. You may have said yes to something that absolutely served you, your goals, your business, or something that really mattered to you without ever reevaluating and asking yourself, does it still serve? Over planning. Thinking you can get way more done in a day or a week than is actually and oftentimes humanly possible. Therefore, you're rolling tasks over day after day, and that is so disheartening at best, and definitely contributing to feeling overcommitted. How about saying no to social invitations? I'm not saying you need to say no to social invitations all the time, but what if you prioritize asking yourself first if going to the social invitation is what's best for you? Because sometimes your bed is the best place to go, meaning you need more sleep. Again, these are just a few examples to get your ideas going. We're going to jump into how to not overexert yourself. Do the tasks that require your best focus at a time where your energy is highest. So aligning the type of activities that you choose to do with your natural energy levels. Prioritize sleep so that you are well rested, full of energy, and able to focus and show up your best. Eat foods that fuel you. Get exercise. Physical exercise can help your mental bandwidth or fatigue. Create boundaries so that you are not constantly managing interruptions and distractions. Next, how to not overwork yourself. Delegate tasks that do not need to be done by you. Ask for help, not just at work, but at home too. Create time boundaries for your workday, knowing that you'll always have tasks. Okay. Now, time boundaries to your workday means you're going to prioritize a start and an end time, or you may prioritize by saying, I am not working on Sundays. Because if you lead by, if I have something to do that's on my task list that I need to be working, you will always be working. You are always going to have tasks on your task list because let's be honest, if you got to a day that you had nothing on your to-do list, you'd probably be out of business. So let's stop fighting reality and choose the boundaries that support ourselves, our vision of success, what we desire, and then work within those boundaries. This goes back to what I often talk about here on Productivity Straight Talk, which is Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law states that tasks will expand to the amount of time given. And so if we don't have boundaries or our boundaries are so broad, of course our tasks are going to expand to that time. And then lastly, prioritize tasks and projects. Prioritizing tasks and projects lets you prioritize your resources, such as your mental energy and bandwidth, your time. By being able to prioritize and manage your limited resources, it can help combat the feeling of being overworked. I just shared with you just a few examples under the 3 areas of being overcommitted, overexerted, and overworked, and very actionable ways in which you can look at choosing something different so that you don't feel that way and then ultimately feel overwhelmed. Okay, so here's my big finish. I hear that when your time is consumed by all the big O's you don't want, you are too stressed out and out of time to achieve the big O you do want. Just saying. I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk. And I sure hope you found these insights around some of the root causes of overwhelm to be incredibly valuable. And I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on today's episode, a great place to start taking action is to be aware of when you are thinking or saying or mumbling, "I'm overwhelmed," and challenge yourself to ask the question of what is actually creating the feeling of overwhelm. As we close out, I want to ask you just a few questions. Are you consistently feeling overwhelmed in your business? Is that overwhelm robbing you of the joy in your business and life? If you answered yes to both of these questions and want coaching to help support you in not overcommitting, overexerting, and overworking yourself, then I invite you to check out my Leverage Lab business coaching and training program. To learn more and join us, head on over to amberdelagarza.com/leverage lab. And as a reminder, if you are new here, please hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you loved today's episode and think that it could be impactful and valuable to someone else, send them a link and ask them to take a listen. That's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.